how do we create a sustainable ecosystem for electronics and semiconductor industry in India? That's the question. So we have talked about what is the problem and what is the current status. Now let's focus a little bit on how we can do this. Now, do we have experience in establishing a large industry, such as an electronics industry? I will give you enough number of examples to say that we are capable. In fact, we are clearly capable of establishing a very large electronics and semiconductor industry. We don't have one now, but we'll be able to develop one. How do we do that? I will cite some examples for you. Amul, everyone knows about this. Everyone remembers at least the cartoons are those Amul baby giving out jnana and several things that are happening in the society. Amul is at one time when it was created, Amul, when it was created, there was a problem that they were trying to solve. The problem was India needs a lot of milk. India consumes a lot of milk, but there were several small players, very small companies working disparately on their own. And when if they don't come together, everyone is deciding their own, they're forming their own cartel and increasing the price of milk. In Gujarat, one person decided to stand in the way, called Varghese Kurian. His name is Varghese Kurian. He was supported by Sardar Patel in the beginning. And then later on, this organization built a very large network. In fact, India is now the biggest producers of milk as well as biggest consumers of milk. And how did it, how was that made possible? You just have to study Amul as a case study. You just have to see how they did that. How did they manage to build such a large network of milk producers? They all come together and produce milk. Is a towering example of how India can build a very strong ecosystem in one of the most important needs of our country, that is milk. Okay, and then my favorite example is Tata's. Tata started in 1868. 1868 is a very long time ago. If you see now, there is not an area that Tata's did not touch. When you talk about Amul, we are talking about public-private enterprise, right? A private enterprise as well as a government entity coming together to create a large network of milk producers. Now, Tata is an independent country, independent company, and it has not. There is not an area that it did not touch in the current times. You see Big Basket, you see Chroma, and you see steel. Or you can look at any of the number of things that are out there. Tata is there. Tata was able to build a very large empire that is making India proud, making India self-reliant in many areas. They are also into computer consultancy. They are also into semiconductor industry right now, and they are also into pharmacy right now. 1mg, if you take 1mg as an example. Now there is this private industry that is able to do very big things. In the US, government did not do much. It was Intel and companies like Intel that came forward. Government just enabled the process. They gave them the water, they gave them the land, they showed them a place to go and set up their industry. That's all. And Intel grew on its own. Tata is capable of doing that. When Tata enters, when I heard that Tata is entering semiconductor industry, I felt very proud because Tata can do what Intel could do in the US. So that's another example. And then we'll talk about green revolution. At one time, India was considered a begging bowl. Everything that we needed, we were not able to produce on our own, especially food. People starved. There was a time when Lal Bahadur Shastri addressed the entire nation and told them, I am not going to eat my dinner every day until India gets better. I'm going to eat only one meal. Let all Indians come forward and do the same thing until our food crisis is resolved. Those were the times. And since the Green Revolution started, we are not a begging bowl anymore, but we are a bread basket. We are able to export wheat, rice, and many items to other countries. We are essentially feeding the world with the food that we produce in our country. We are definitely capable of that. So with this background, I'm very confident that we can do something similar in India. How do we do that? So those are the questions that we want to answer today. How do we create a sustainable ecosystem? In my opinion, we should start from bottom up. we should start with schools. And I noticed, I stayed in Singapore, I stayed in the US, and there are a lot of hands-on activities for children in schools and colleges. And unfortunately, in India, we didn't have that. Now we are part of, we have started a program called Robotics in Academics. Robotics, the name we used to create, to generate an interest, because when we talk about electronics, people will not immediately get excited about it. But when you use the word robotics, thanks to some of the movies like Robo of Rajnikant and things like that, children will get excited about it. I want to do robotics, and they will feel proud to tell others that they are attending a robotics class. So we are able to generate a lot of interest in our younger folks. We have done that. We have trained about 3,500 children, and we know that there is a large appetite for this kind of knowledge. What happens when children develop a lot of interest in electronics? They will love to become electronics engineers. When you go to schools and ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of them end up telling you either they want to become a doctor or an engineer. And what kind of engineer? When I ask them, they will all say, I want to be a computer programmer, computer engineer. And that means programming. They don't want to talk about electronics as an industry, electronics as a profession to take up. And we noticed in colleges, engineering colleges also, that the intake for computer science classes is much more than intake for the electronics engineering branches, right? So what we thought is, if we start generating interest in electronics from a very young age, we'll be able to create enough pool of people who will start filling up the electronics branches in engineering colleges. Now, I would like to share a small video here on how we are able to generate this interest in the schools and colleges. See, look at the smiles on the faces of these children who take up this thing. Right? Okay, let's see this video first.